Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Iowa Women's Foundation Board of Directors, welcome to our 22nd annual luncheon. By attending this event, you are demonstrating your commitment toward the women and children in Iowa. If you are a new attendee, a special welcome to the important work of the Iowa Women's Foundation. If you are a returning supporter, thank you. Without your support, we could not have become a statewide force impacting the economic well-being of women and their families. We need all of you in this room for us to meet the challenges that face women and children in our state. There are several outstanding groups here with us today that we need to recognize. Please stand when I call your group. Our luncheon sponsors. Please stand. They are listed in your program and on the screens in front. Please help me thank them now for supporting the 2018 annual luncheon. Our current Board of Directors and Advisory Council. They are truly devoted to improving the lives of Iowa's women and girls. We would also like to thank the Luncheon Committee and its chair, Nikki Morris, who has given so many hours to make this day possible. Please stand. Remember, clapping is burning calories. So, in the audience today, there are many girls and women who were honored in our 5th edition of Ovation, a tribute to Iowa women and girls. Please stand. You have truly made an impact on the people in your life. Thank you for all you have done and continue to do. We would also like to thank all the founders and Leadership Circle donors here today. It is because of your generosity and support that we are able to promote our mission of improving the lives of women and girls through economic self-sufficiency. As you probably noticed, it was a little more difficult getting here today. This is not only about the construction issues on First Avenue, but also about the roadblocks you see here at the end of the room, roadblocks to women's economic self-sufficiency. It is our mission to work to reduce and eventually eliminate all of these barriers. This is a job we cannot do alone. As a grant-making organization, the Iowa Women's Foundation helps fund credible and successful organizations that work directly with Iowa's women and girls. Will the 2019 IWF grant partners please stand to be recognized? You can read about the work of each of these organizations in your luncheon program starting on page 7. And our heartfelt thanks to the IWF Grant Review Committee and the Community Review panelists for your hard work in vetting and selecting key partners to our work. Please stand. You have chosen credible people who will roll up their sleeves and get the work done. And I would also be remiss, and I'm off script here for a second, we have such a marvelous staff at the Iowa Women's Foundation. I don't know if they're in the room yet, but Ann Parker and Helen Daly, if you're in the room, let us acknowledge the work you do every day for the Iowa Women's Foundation. And you saw all those beautiful young women who were out at the registration desk. Those are part of the Women in Business from the Tippie College of Business. Thank you for your work today. So all our staff and grantees and the people on the board work hard to provide the opportunity for women to have education and requisite skills for the workplace, to work a job that supports them and their families, to find safe and affordable housing, to access transportation and life-promoting mentors, and to not have to struggle to find affordable, accessible, quality child care. So why has the Iowa Women's Foundation chosen to focus on child care? Because nearly all of the 18 communities we visited across the state listed child care as the most expedient and critical issue for Iowa for women's economic self-sufficiency. Because last year, researchers with the Center for American Progress, a Washington, D.C. think tank, surveyed U.S. Census tracts and found that 24% of Iowa residents live in child care deserts, places where child care is scant or not available at all. And further, that figure has jumped to 37% in rural areas, deserts in the middle of our Iowa heartland and provider to the world. The centerpieces on your table are placed there to remind you of these child deserts. Because Iowa ranks #1 among all 50 states for the percentage of households with young children and all available parents in the labor force, the national average is 65%. Iowa is at 76%, 11 percentage points higher than the national average. Because child care is your earliest opportunity for education and is important to our local and state economy. Parents need safe and reliable child care to be able to work to pursue higher skills. And employers need employees to be able to access that child care to run effective businesses in their communities. And because of you, our supporters, who commit your time and your resources toward making Iowa better for women and their children. Because you believe in us and have supported our work, you are the most powerful resource to move us forward in this critical work. Don't stop now. We are here today to recognize and celebrate our work and those who have helped with our success. Enjoy the commitment, hospitality, and appreciation you feel in this room. Take this time now to enjoy the companionship at your table. We will resume shortly with a truly exciting program. And remember, when barriers are removed and opportunities are open to them, women and girls thrive and Iowa wins. Let's eat.
Thank you all for being here today. My name is Dawn Oliver Wyand, and I am the Executive Director of the Iowa Women's Foundation. The theme for this year's luncheon is Stronger Together. As Jill mentioned to you earlier in her remarks, there are many barriers that are standing in the way of women's economic self-sufficiency, barriers that no single organization can solve on its own. Jill also shared with you the Iowa Women's Foundation has narrowed our focus and increased our impact by working on the child care barrier first. Our research and community conversations show us that Iowa is in a child care crisis. This crisis is no longer a family issue. It is a workforce issue, a business issue, and a community issue. We need to make sure that child care is more accessible to all Iowans, including those who are living and working in underserved rural areas. Not only do we need to increase the access to everyday child care for our working parents, We need more non-traditional options for parents who are working outside of the 9-to-5 schedule and our parents who are attending school. We need to make childcare more affordable while ensuring that our providers earn a fair and livable wage. The Iowa Women's Foundation is working head-on with other nonprofits, educators, businesses, community leaders, and volunteers all across our state to tackle this barrier together. We are focusing our energy and our resources to impact the child care barrier, decrease the workforce gap, and ultimately achieve IWF's mission to improve the lives of Iowa's women and girls through economic self-sufficiency. Earlier this year, the Iowa Women's Foundation and partner organizations embarked on a very ambitious journey and established the Building Community Child Care Solutions Collaborative. The goal of this new and bold collaborative is to provide participants with connections and resources that they need to create and implement child care solutions in their own communities. Working with our many partners, we created a toolkit that now outlines how different individuals, organizations, and institutions, with that toolkit, we gave them the connections and the resources they need to create and implement child care solutions. They have now looked at those solutions. They have decided which ones of them do they think is best for their community, because we know that not all solutions will work in all communities, and we know that it's going to take a multitude of solutions. So we've helped them decide what is best. After they did that, they then strategized a planned course of action and are now working to expand the existing child care centers, or to build a new child care center, or to start before and after school programming, to encourage child care entrepreneurs, and much, much more. We started with 9 communities. As of today, there are over 400 committed volunteers and supporters working together in 18 different communities across Iowa to bring real change to their communities through the Building Community Child Care Solutions Collaborative. Let me tell you, I've been to all those 18 communities. It's amazing what these people are doing. These women and men are working incredibly hard to increase the availability of quality, affordable child care across our state. I love it when I choose to go off script, and I'm going to choose to do that right now just for a minute, because I think it's really important that you know that we are not doing this alone. The Iowa Women's Foundation truly believes that this is a collaborative effort, and I have some community partners that have traveled from all across the state to join us today, and I want you to help me thank them for being here and thank them for working with us. So if table number 42, who is Child Care Resource and Referral, would please stand and remain standing until we're done. Thank you for not getting on the chairs. At table 15, I would like Jill Applegate from Every Child Matters and Sheila Hansen from Children and Family Public Policy to please stand. Thank you. And finally, at table number 2, Joanne Lane, who has been in the child care business and industry for a long time and is an amazing resource. She's here today from Early Childhood, Iowa. Thank you all so much. I want you to know that these are the experts in this area, and we are honored to walk beside you and to be your partners, because together we are going to shatter the child care barrier. Now, I'd like you to please turn your attention to the screens where we have a short video to share with you.
This is Carrie. Carrie and her family, Jean, Hannah, and Scruffles, live here. When Carrie goes to work, her kids go to a child care center where they can play, learn, and let Mom focus on her work. Recently, Carrie got a promotion and a raise. But because her salary went up by just 50 cents within the next year, Carrie will lose all of her state child care assistance and will no longer be able to afford to send Jean and Hannah to their current child care center. And since she can't bring the kids to work with her, and since there are no other affordable child care providers nearby, she'll have to drive miles out of her way to access affordable care. This puts Carrie in a tough position. If she turns down the promotion, she'll miss out on other opportunities to advance at work. But if she loses her child care assistance, the extra cost will leave her with just a fraction of her income to pay for things like food, utilities, and gas. Women like Carrie aren't alone. Parents all across Iowa struggle to find and afford quality, accessible child care. That's where organizations like the Iowa Women's Foundation come in. This is us. Every day, we work with schools, businesses, educators and care providers, policymakers, and parents just like Carrie to bring the community together to solve Iowa's child care crisis. We don't have all the answers, but we are asking the important questions, like how can we make child care more affordable? And how can we increase access for parents in rural communities where child care centers are few and far between? By connecting stakeholders to resources available in their area, the Iowa Women's Foundation is helping businesses and communities across Iowa open new centers, create family-friendly policies, and find novel solutions to tackle their toughest child care challenges. Because Carrie and all of us are stronger when we work together.
This is why access to affordable, quality child care matters. It matters to our families, to our businesses, and to Iowa. Now, I would like to turn the microphone over to Emily Boldholt of Ready, Set, Grow Learning Center. She is working with the Storm Lake community to increase the availability of quality child care in an informative way. Please join me in welcoming Emily to the stage.
Thank you, Dawn, and to the Iowa Women's Foundation for having me here today. And thank you to everyone in the audience for generously giving your time to support the great work that they're doing. 8 years ago, something happened that forever changed my life and the lives of so many in my community. In 2010, parents in Storm Lake were notified that our only child care center, which served more than 150 children, would be closing forever. We were given just 3 days' notice. After hearing the devastating news, I scrambled to find child care before the work week began. To this day, I remember those feelings of uncertainty and desperation as I called provider after provider, searching for childcare to no avail. As the years passed, my family grew, and unfortunately, our struggles to find childcare continued. As a result of in-home providers either moving away or closing their businesses, my children attended 3 different in-home childcare providers in just 4 years. The inconsistency was tough on the kids and stressful for me and my husband as we tried to find childcare in an already saturated market. At that time, Storm Lake had a population of 11,000 and 0 child care centers. Then something happened that ignited my passion and moved me to take action. In 2014, I attended an open forum hosted by Early Childhood Iowa to address the need for childcare in Storm Lake. Following that initial meeting, a steering committee was formed by myself and another in-home provider who also wanted to see change in our community. We recruited friends and colleagues to join us on a steering committee. Over the next several months, our dream evolved. We looked into our options and decided that the best way for a child care center to be successful in our area would be to form a partnership with a local business, church, or school. In order to meet the child care needs of our area, it was necessary to think outside the box, to develop a solution that would allow for a child care center that would be both affordable for our working families, as well as reliable and financially sustainable. Our first challenge was finding a location. With no funds, the committee started meeting with local church leaders, real estate agents, and school superintendents. We discovered that real estate purchases were out of our budget and simply not feasible. Churches were a consideration, but many of them needed extensive modifications to meet child care requirements. And the Storm Lake School District did not have the room for a center, as it was already full to the brim, and even having to turn away preschool candidates due to a lack of classroom space. Finally, we discussed our plans with the superintendent of the Alta Aurelia School District, located 6 miles west of Storm Lake. The superintendent, Mr. Lynn Evans, had been a part of initiating a child care center at a previous school, and he recognized the importance of quality child care in his current school district. With advocates both inside and outside our community, we were able to turn our dream into a reality. The fruit of our committee's labor is Ready, Set, Grow Learning Center is now located in the former high school building in downtown Alta, an ideal location for the Early Childhood Center. Here, we're able to contract with the school district for the noon meal, cleaning supplies, and other paper supplies. The school allows us to lease these classrooms for only $1 a year, and it helps to take care of the utilities, the garbage service, snow removal, lawn care, and general building upkeep. Where otherwise the former school building may have stood empty and unused, we have breathed new life into the old building while providing a valuable service to our community. The city of Alta has also been very supportive of Ready, Set, Grow. At the beginning of our journey, I attended an Alta City Council meeting to inform them of our intentions to form a nonprofit organization, and the city graciously paid our nonprofit application fee. We were fortunate to also have the support of a couple local attorneys who volunteered their services to assist us with that legal paperwork. To say that this was a group effort would be an understatement. Ready, Set, Grow was opened by the hard work of our board of directors and support from our community. we did not utilize any financing to open our center. We made this a priority in order to maximize our chances of being financially successful, especially after the downfall of our town's previous child care center, which closed for financial reasons. Today, Ready, Set, Grow is a success story for our community. This past summer, we expanded our space and offerings to accommodate more children, including school-aged children. We've hired new staff, including a summer program coordinator, and we're not stopping anytime soon. In the spirit of continuing to think outside the box, we are currently partnering with Methodist Manor, a local nursing home located along the shores of Storm Lake, to finally bring a child care center back to the city. Methodist Manor is in the process of constructing a new facility, and it will be vacating the current resident halls, one of which will become the new location for Ready, Set, Grow. We'll have a center in Alta and then Storm Lake. At this time, we are working on fundraising efforts so that once again, we can open our center without the need for financing, while preserving a space that may have otherwise been left empty or abandoned. All children deserve a safe, caring place to go, and all families deserve affordable, reliable child care for their loved ones. Our journey has been several years in the making, and it has been full of stressors and setbacks, but the positive stories from families and staff make it all worthwhile. I personally believe that the key to success for child care centers in our rural Iowa communities is partnership. It's difficult for a child care center to succeed and remain affordable for working families without community support. Child care is a service to the community, and its benefits not only the children it serves, it benefits us all. And so it's up to every one of us to support initiatives to make child care and our communities stronger by working together. Thank you once again for your time and attention, and for supporting Iowa families.
She just thanked me for inviting her so she could come speak before you all. Now, doesn't that say something about Emily? Wow. And I have toured Ready, Set, Grow, so I would highly recommend if you're ever in the Alta area to stop by and have a visit. Thank you, Emily, for being here. It is our pleasure. And thank you for sharing your story. And many thanks to Ready, Set, Grow Learning Center for providing an example of how all of us are stronger when we work together. I'd like to take one more quick moment before I introduce our next speaker. If you are a parent in this room, would you please stand? Okay, hold on, I'm not done. If you are a child care provider in this room, please stand. Keep standing. If you are a business leader, an educator, a policymaker, a donor, or a volunteer, please stand. Now, before you all sit back down, please take a look at the room. Look all around you. Look, just about everyone is standing. I think it is just about everyone. Each of you has the power, the talents, and the passion to make a difference. But we are stronger together. Together, we can do more. Okay, you can sit back down now. Thank you. Together, we are going to shatter the child care barrier. It is powerful to hear the stories of how communities are facing this problem. We have one more story for you this afternoon. Please welcome to the stage an amazing friend of our organization, an IWF board member and partner at De Novo Marketing, Jen Newman.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dawn, and thank you, Emily. Emily's story is the perfect example of what happens when we come together to find solutions, and it's very inspiring to hear that, because that is what is going on across Iowa, and it is the work that we do together that makes these kind of things happen. But there's also a reason that I'm involved with IWF. The story and the mission of the Iowa Women's Foundation speaks to me on a really personal level. As a business and a community leader, my personal story isn't one that many people know about me. It's not because I'm particularly embarrassed by it, but because it's so far in the past. So much has changed and we've come so far. But it bears telling. So my sister and I grew up in Bettendorf, Iowa, with a single parent, my mom. My dad was an alcoholic, and he really succumbed to alcoholism when I was in first grade. And he left my mom for a woman who was happy to sit in a bar with him all day. So when they split up, my mom had just finished barber college, and she was trying to figure out what her career held for her. When my dad left, she quickly learned that she needed 2 jobs to make ends meet, as my dad would take any voluntary layoff that came his way at John Deere, and he was not paying child support. Eventually, he got himself onto disability, and support really just slowed to a trickle at that point. I was 7 when the divorce was final, and my sister was 3. My mom did everything she could do to make our lives as normal as possible. Her family wasn't really near enough to be a support to her, so we bounced around to a lot of child care providers, and when Emily was talking about 3 child care providers in 4 years, I could really relate to that. So eventually, she couldn't find anybody who could get us to and from school so that she could work. And finally, we found this little old lady down the hill from us, and her name was Grandma Keebler. That's what we called her. And she made cookies and buttered ham sandwiches, and I got really pudgy. So she was wonderful. She was truly wonderful. But I remember my mom being so tired. And so one of my clearest memories is of her at dinner one night, and my sister and I were probably like fighting over Barbies or something, I don't know. And I saw that her eyes were closed like this, but I could see her eyeballs moving back and forth under her eyelids so fast, and she was resting, but she was so stressed. I can't even imagine how intense her stress was during that time. She did end up going on public assistance eventually, which meant food stamps and some financial help for us. She'd injured herself, and this allowed her to just work 1 very full-time job instead of 2 and maybe recover a little bit. So it was very embarrassing for me at that time. It was, I'm in the free lunch line with the weird colored tickets that other kids didn't have, and I remember the day a classmate delivered items from the food pantry to our house. I thought I was gonna die. It was a mortifying moment for me. Money was tight and cars broke down, but although I knew we were very poor, I never felt like I missed anything too important. And that was because she ensured our needs were met first. And it really, pardon my French, pisses me off when people complain about women who receive public assistance. The term welfare queens was invented by people who have no idea what it means to fear the worst for your children. Eventually, my mom got her business off the ground, and she went out on her own. I spent a lot of time playing with the printing calculator in the back room and pretending my sister was my secretary and gopher. And I think that's where my own entrepreneurial and bossy leanings took root. My own mom is the reason I am who I am today, and she worked around, through, and over all the same barriers that we are trying to eliminate with the work we do at the Iowa Women's Foundation. I don't know if she would look back on that struggle and wear the fact that she had to go on public assistance to support her children as a badge of honor, but I will wear it for her. Every child deserves to be fed, clothed, and cared for. Every woman deserves to be able to support herself and her family and not fear for her children's well-being. That is why I support the work of the Iowa Women's Foundation. And now I am asking you to support our work and help more Iowa women gain financial independence and self-sufficiency. Most of our tables have a table host. You can usually tell who it is because as Midwesterners, he or she is the one who is looking at their plate right now and feeling a little awkward, so let's just make it easy for them. If you're inclined to support the work we do to help women in Iowa achieve their goals and reach economic self-sufficiency, break down barriers to their success, and support Iowa as a state that women and children grow and thrive in, write a check, or better yet, your credit card number down. So I'll keep talking so you can add some zeros right now. Please make a contribution to the Iowa Women's Foundation so we can continue to make grants to organizations like the wonderful nonprofits listed in today's program, so we can continue to rally our communities to work together, and so we can continue to improve the lives of all of Iowa's women and girls. At last year's luncheon, we raised almost $30,000, and I'm very competitive, so I would like to raise more than that. Like, let's just double our impact, so one more zero on there. So I'd also like to add, as you're writing another zero, that our friends at the James Investment Group, where are our friends at the James Investment Group? Yeah. Woo! All right, give them a holler. Okay. Have generously committed to matching your donations up to $10,000. Should I add a zero there? So, Lois and Jeremy, thank you for your unwavering, generous support of our work. You are truly exceptional people. Please don't leave this money on the table today. Please, please contribute to the Iowa Women's Foundation. Make a donation, join one of our circles of giving, and give whatever you can, and leave this luncheon knowing that you are a part of an amazing team making a real difference in the lives of Iowa women and girls. We are stronger together. And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today. Today, we have with us Danielle Kurtzleben, political reporter with NPR and a regular on the NPR Politics podcast, which is my favorite podcast. And you can also hear her speaking on NPR and specializing in economics and politics, particularly as they relate to gender. Both at NPR and in her former roles as a reporter at Vox and U.S. News and World Report, Danielle's work makes sense of policy and data to help listeners more easily understand their place in American politics. She's also a native of Titanca, Iowa, so she is from the Beltway and back to the Corn Belt. Please welcome Danielle Kurtzleben to the stage for her keynote speech. Thank you.
Oh, goodness. All right. Hope that's the right height. Yeah, I want to thank you all again for having me here, giving me your attention for however long this goes. Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, actually, and I was telling him, I'm headed to Iowa this week. I'm doing a speech there, and, I'm really nervous. And he said, okay, so what's your speech about? And I said, it's around childcare. And he went, you don't have kids. And number one, that's a jerk move. Like, not the kind of support I was looking for. But number two, childcare really does affect everyone. It affects women and men. It affects even people without kids, which I'm going to get to here. Because I know that childcare has played a formative experience in my life. When I was 7, my mom went back to work. My mom is here today. She's right there. Great mom. Right. So when I was 7, Mom went back to work. I have 2 sisters. And Mom needed someone to watch us because she worked mornings at the local post office where she still works. And on Saturday mornings, she needed someone to watch us. So she got Carolyn, the teenager from down the road, to come and look after us. And Carolyn was a truly great babysitter. She has played a very formative experience in my life. She taught me how to dance. She taught me jokes. I had this little play makeup set, and she taught me that when you're applying your eyeshadow, it's very important to put the blue eyeshadow all the way up to your eyebrows with little wings, she called them, of blue and white that go all the way out to your hairline. She also taught me that orange lipstick is a totally acceptable fashion choice, and that when you're applying your blush, the correct way to do it is to take some fuchsia and put a big thick streak on, and then rub it as hard as you can with your thumb while you say blend over and over and over again. I don't know why she did it, but she did that all the time, and I think of it every time I put blush on. So thanks, Carolyn. And you know, childcare was also a formative experience in my life because I was a childcare provider. It was one of my first jobs. When I was 12, Mrs. Cato, the typing teacher, she asked me to watch her daughter Hannah every afternoon after school, at least for a few months, so she could go coach volleyball. And I was delighted because not only was I getting paid, I mean, you know, I was 12 and whatever little she was paying me, I don't remember what it was, you know, a massive sum to me. Not only that, but it was an easy job. Pretty much all it consisted of was giving Hannah some sun chips and hanging out in the sandbox with her. But also, I gotta say, I was thinking back on this, and one of the things that I loved about this job, and this really is irrelevant, but I have to tell you anyway, is that Hannah was a toddler, and she did that toddler thing where she spewed out just random syllables every so often. She, you know, didn't have words yet. And for some reason, her favorite syllable was essentially the F word. So I sat and played with Hannah every day for a month or two. And every day for a month or two, I just listened to her drop the F-bomb. And it was best job I ever had, man, you know. Now, if you're thinking I've told you these stories purely because they make for good, lighthearted anecdotes at the start of a speech, you're mostly correct. But there is a practical nugget here, because in both of these cases, someone was getting paid to take care of kids so a woman could get a new job or take more responsibilities at her job. And that's really important. So that's why I'm here today. I'm here to talk about childcare and family leave, these family-friendly, working family-friendly policies that help Americans, and especially American women, let's face it, to work. I want to back up. Jen introduced me, but to tell you a little about me, I am a politics reporter with NPR, and this year, I'm focused particularly on gender in politics. If you're paying any attention to this year's midterm... What? I don't know what just happened, but I'm going to go with it. This year, I am focused in particular on gender in politics. As you may know, if you don't live under a rock, this year there's a record-breaking number of women running for Congress. Two of them here in the Hawkeye State. I have spoken to both of them. And yeah, this is a huge political deal, and one that I'm also going to come back to later. For years before that, I was a business and economics reporter. Once again, I was paying special attention to women's place in the economy. And I want to be clear here before I start, I am a reporter. I'm not here to make policy prescriptions. But there are objective reasons to think why childcare, paid leave, these sorts of policies that make it easier for people to work, especially women, could play and will play an increasingly important role in the policy arena and in the American economy. Now, you're all smart people, and I imagine that many of you have heard the numbers out there about the US, standing alone among advanced economies with its lack of paid leave provisions, or about how expensive childcare is in the United States compared to other countries. And that's all important, but a thing that has really struck me over the course of my life, and especially over the course of my reporting, is in recent years, the last decade especially, how much issues surrounding work, and especially women's work, have grown louder in the national mainstream policy arena. At times, these are even some of the loudest policy debates there are on the state and national level. We've gone from, in the 1990s and early 2000s, so-called family-friendly policies like paid leave and childcare, being sort of side issues, much more among Democrats than Republicans, to on the campaign trail in 2016, politicians of both parties made news when they unveiled their childcare and paid leave policies. And so a big thing I want to do today is trace how that happened, as well as what more women in office, a thing that I'm reporting a lot on, could mean for family-friendly policies. So I want to start by showing you a chart. and this will get at the urgency of childcare. One issue here is that women's participation in the labor force, after decades of climbing, leveled off and even started falling. Do we have the chart? No? Hey, there we go. So what you see here, the red line is men, the blue line is women. What this shows you is the share of men who are in the labor force and the share of women who are in the labor force. That is, people who are either working or looking for work. Now what you see here is that over time, there was that long stretch in there where women were really entering the labor force in really big numbers and narrowing that gap. Now that gap has stopped narrowing. That's really important, because if you ask economics experts, hey, why did that happen? Why did women just kind of hit that ceiling and sort of top out? They say, there's a lot of reasons for that, but childcare could be and probably is one major issue there that is stopping that. In countries that have more generous childcare provisions, like France, for example, you haven't seen nearly this dramatic of a change. And it's easy to see how childcare would affect women more than men. Despite increasingly egalitarian ideas in the United States about parenting, men taking on more of the childcare and more of the housework responsibilities, women still bear the brunt of childcare in the United States. As of 2016, according to the Pew Research Center, moms spent around 14 hours per week on childcare compared to 8 hours for dads. Not to mention 18 hours on housework compared to men's 10. More evidence on this. Back in 2016, we at NPR did a survey on childcare. What we found is that moms were much more likely than dads to say that childcare benefits them across a range of indicators: health, their stress levels, and even their relationships with their own kids. Likewise, Likewise, the Labor Department has found when they ask people, why are you not in the labor force? Women are overwhelmingly likely to say it's because of family responsibilities. Men, much more likely to say it's because of injuries or disability. Family responsibilities simply hit women harder. So it's possible then that providing better childcare, more affordable childcare, and just more plentiful childcare could encourage more women to go to work, the thinking goes. And it's not just about the number of workers, it's about the quality. Women are increasingly better educated than men. Among young adults, women are comfortably ahead of men in terms of getting bachelor's degrees. And this isn't about a battle of the sexes sort of thing. What it is that women are more and more valuable workers. And as they've become that, there's been increased attention on making sure that employers in the economy can keep all of that value in the economy and keep it from dropping out. To be clear, though, the childcare conversation often becomes an echo chamber of the white-collar set. But the women most acutely hurt by lacks of access to paid leave and childcare are, in fact, the least educated and the lowest income women, as well as single parents. All of this, by the way, is very relevant to Iowa in particular. As of August, you guys had the second lowest unemployment rate in the nation. As of July 2018, the most recent data we have, Ames had the lowest unemployment rate of all metro areas in the country at 1.8%. And that's great, and you should pat yourselves on the back about it. It's lovely. People can find jobs in Iowa when they want them. Not only that, but when you have a tight labor market like this, workers can negotiate. They can get better pay. Once again, that's awesome. On the other hand, it can go past awesome and become bad again, because it can mean worker shortages, and I know you guys have heard about this. It means some businesses in Iowa are having real trouble finding workers. That 1.8% unemployment rate in Ames, for example, could be edging on too low. When there aren't enough workers in an economy, whether it's the national economy or a local economy, it can stop a business from expanding, from finding that extra worker they need to do more work. Not to mention, it means that many fewer paychecks out buying things. If our economic setup is keeping valuable potential workers from being able to work, that's our economy shooting itself in the foot. So to the extent that there's a new mom in Ames, for example, who stops working because she can't afford to work and pay childcare bills, better childcare access could reasonably send her out into the workforce. And this isn't just about paychecks. Dropping out of the labor force can have more lasting effects than this year's salary. That mom in Ames, it would be taking a big hit to her retirement. The less money she's saving now, the less of a return she's going to get when she's 70. Not to mention, a gap in her working life now is going to lower her future earnings as well. So simple economics, having all these workers and workplaces who could use these extra workers, that is one big reason why childcare and paid leave, these things have grown to such a big place in our national political conversation. And I do want to throw out an aside here because it's worth adding. It might seem a little ironic that childcare and paid leave are hot policy topics right now, right as Americans are delaying childbearing and having fewer kids than before. The American birth rate has slowed down. And there are a lot of reasons for this, to be clear. Americans are delaying marriage and childbirth for a lot of reasons. But one of the many reasons that families delaying or foregoing having kids is the cost. Greater access to affordable childcare could alleviate at least a little bit of that. More pointedly, though, another reason women are delaying or foregoing childbearing is because they fear derailing their careers. And it's not an unfounded fear. Research shows that motherhood is a major contributor to the gender wage gap. Now, some workplaces are grappling with how to make those workplaces better for moms and prospective moms. Consider any of the news stories you might have seen about Silicon Valley startups that are paying for women to freeze their eggs. It's a very niche example. Your workplace might not do it, mine doesn't. But it helps show us something important. Our society is still in the very early stages of grappling with making sure that talented men and women can keep working and earning at their highest potential. We still haven't figured that out. Paid leave and affordable and convenient childcare may not be silver bullets for that problem, but they could be key factors in fixing it. Now, those economic factors have helped push childcare closer to the center of the national conversation, but politics play a part here too. A second reason childcare has gained more attention in recent years is simply that women vote, and women vote more than men every single year, and that gap is growing. Once again, paid leave and childcare aren't purely women's issues, nor should they be, but it is still something women take more advantage of than men and seem to feel more affected by. And I can tell you that every campaign event I've gone to this year, women more than men have told me that these sorts of issues are big driving factors in their votes this year. And one more thing is that we can't leave men out of the equation here. Quite simply, it appears that men, as well as women, have been changing how they feel about work-life balance issues. One 2014 study showed that millennial men are less traditional in their views than their older counterparts, overwhelmingly rejecting the notion that it's the woman's job to stay home with the kids while the man goes to work. When you consider how many men are now supporting their families alongside their wives, perhaps alongside wives who earn more than them, it makes sense that some men would start wanting to help women stay on an upward career and earnings trajectory. It just makes the family's finances that much more sustainable. But to change gears here, I've been talking about how it's been fascinating or even stunning to watch these policies for working families work their way into mainstream politics. And it has been, but to be clear, this isn't to say we've seen childcare and paid leave suddenly occupy some grand, super central place in American politicians' minds. Other things like taxation, healthcare, Supreme Court justices, these have all taken center stage in the last couple of years and the last couple of weeks. I'm sure you know that. But I'm merely saying these things have broken through. And as we see 2020 approaching, I can promise you that these things will be even more central. But let's talk about this year. In 2018, like I said, we have this record number of women running for office. And as women are running in record numbers, it's worth asking whether issues like childcare and paid leave, which seem to affect women much more than men, could get a boost. So first off, let's step back. Women are poised to make gains this year, but how big? The answer is those gains could be very modest. There is a record number of women House nominees this year, and that's a big deal, especially because women are, like I said, always more than half of the voting public, but women are 1 in 5 members of Congress, and that's after years and years of growth. By one calculation, if women were to win every single House race they are favored to win this year, and if they won every single toss-up race they're in, And those are all big ifs. They would go from occupying 19% of House seats to a whopping 24%. So 50-50 is a long way off. I know, it's bonkers. So how would that change Congress? That's the important thing here. There is a strain of thinking out there that bringing in more women will fix Congress. The idea is that women are nicer, they're more collegial, they're more bipartisan than men. I like that you're laughing at this. Because you know what? They've done research on this, and the most recent research says that's not true. This recent study found that women politicians really aren't that much more or less bipartisan than men. People just tend to stick with their party regardless of gender. And honestly, there's probably something kind of damaging about thinking that putting women in office would be a magic wand to solve the nation's politics. Because if you elect all of those women, and if they don't end up magically fixing our current polarized mess, then everyone would be left asking, well, why didn't the women clean it all up? It sure seemed like they would. But there is some evidence that women legislate at least a little bit differently. Women lawmakers have brought more money back to their districts. When they're in the minority party, women have been able to keep their bills alive longer. And there is some evidence that women lawmakers focus more on so-called women's issues, not that you have to like that term, like working family policies and women's health. And I can give you a little bit of anecdotal evidence from this year alone, showing that women politicians might change priorities. This year, the FEC gave approval for a congressional candidate from New York. Her name is Liuba Gretchen Shirley. They gave her the okay to use campaign money to pay for regular child care on the campaign trail. All these years of candidates, and it was a woman who asked for this and got it. That is not a coincidence, I wouldn't think. A bit more anecdotal evidence. I was out reporting on a congressional candidate in Kentucky recently. It's a woman named Amy McGrath. She has this impressive resume. She was a fighter pilot, she was in the Marines, but she has made her kids a central part of her campaign. So I went to one of her events, and I asked voters, what do you like about her? And while they respected her military service, and of course it's respectable, I had multiple people, women and men alike, come up to me and say, you know, that's great that she's a fighter pilot, but I really like that she's a mom because she gets it. That was the phrase they used. I'm a data person, so I'm wary of putting too much weight on anecdotal stories like these. But if this trend is widespread, if voters are pressuring politicians to get it and to help working families, it could mean policy changes down the line. The thing is, though, we don't know how much different politics might be if women were equally represented, because it has never happened before. It's never even come close to happening. As one researcher pointed out to me earlier this year, and I'm paraphrasing him here, I've been studying women in Congress for decades. When I started out, there were only a handful of women in Congress. We just didn't have that much data to work with. Similarly, if the economy suddenly had that many more women workers, if women were able to shrink that gap in that chart that I showed you, if women suddenly had as many places in the workforce as men, it would also be a truly remarkable transformation. We don't know what it would look like. And policies like childcare and family leave could at least jumpstart that change. Thank you for having me. That's all I got. And I really appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, I was just sitting there and listening and listening and listening, and all of a sudden she said, I'm done. I thought, no, I still need more. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing all of that with us. It was really interesting to hear. I also want to take this time to thank our other speakers, Emily Boldholt and Jen Newman. Emily, Jen, and Carrie from our video, and all of us have a story and can relate in one way or another to what we have heard today. And for those of you who don't know, I just became a grandmother 3 weeks ago. Thank you. Thank you. I am teaching him that I will be his favorite grandmother. But watching my own daughter go through trying to find childcare has just been overwhelming for her and overwhelming for me. So, and we are stronger together, and we can hopefully all come together to work on this. because together we will shatter the child care barrier so more women are economically self-sufficient. Together, we will increase our businesses' bottom lines by decreasing the workforce gap and the costs of recruitment and training. Together, we will strengthen our communities with economically self-sufficient families and thriving businesses. After you leave here today, I ask you to do 3 things. Please tell 3 people what you learned here today. We need your voice to help us spread the message far and wide that when women and girls succeed, businesses grow, communities thrive, and Iowa will win. When you log on to Facebook or Twitter next, like and follow the Iowa Women's Foundation. Visit our website and sign up for our newsletter on the homepage. Stay connected with us, engage with us, and help us show the world that we are stronger together. And finally, commit to giving to the Iowa Women's Foundation. The envelopes are in your programs today, but if you can't make a donation, please give your time and talents as a volunteer, either to the foundation or as a part of that Building Community Child Care Solutions collaborative that's taking place in communities across our state. Your presence at this luncheon indicates you share our commitment to economically self-sufficient women and girls across Iowa. It begins with child care. It begins by us uniting together to become stronger, because we are stronger together. Please leave your donation envelopes with the women who will be standing at the back of the room. The centerpieces at your table are our gift to the person at your table whose birthday is closest to today. Please take them home with you, and I also have extras at the front table. And Dad, happy birthday. Once again, thank you for making us stronger together. Good afternoon, and please drive safely.